My name's Todd Meyer. I'm a project manager at the Division of Aviation at NCDOT.
And I'm Darshan Dibakaran, the UAS program engineer.
So we're here to talk about Smartsheet. It's more about talking about, you've heard a lot about Florence. Well, we're going to talk about Smartsheet, and Florence is the reason we're here. Let's see, So the first thing we'll do is start off with a nice video to upsell our UAS program.
So these are a bunch of videos all joined, which we have been showing about the whole operation that we did. So different areas in North Carolina and the different teams that flew this. So this you can see that many of these videos were live streaming. Many of them, because of poor connectivity, had to be uploaded. But we were able to get this data out to people pretty quick. When I say people, it's all our DOT and other agencies requesting it. So I believe the damage, the economic impact to this was, if I'm not wrong, $17 billion to $20 billion, the whole Hurricane Florence. So we hope that we played a role in reducing that cost, especially saving lives, because we try to keep live updates to people on the conditions of roads, and I hope people use that and decided not to travel. A lot of folks wanted to go to Wilmington to pick up their loved ones. This was a way for us to let them know that I think your loved ones are safe where they are. Don't go out there. The roads were shut. We had to fly a manned aircraft to get people there to fly these drones. So it's pretty sad, the whole situation, how it happened. But the thing that came out of this was how North Carolina handled these operations using UAS, and our whole operations was congratulated by FAA, NASA, FEMA, National Guard, and we're pretty excited that we could do a good job and help other states in the future with any disasters. Next slide.
So how many people have heard of Smartsheet in the room? Can you raise hands? So we got a few people here. Well, one of the reasons this slide, I'm not a salesperson for Smartsheet. I happen to be using it at the time of this event. It's really a spreadsheet online that does a little bit more. It does some notifications, alerts. You can make dashboards and reports out of it. So one of the key items is remote access. We had this tool. We want to be able to access basically a spreadsheet internally to interconnect internal business processes. So we had a lot of spreadsheets on our shared drives. A lot of them were very important. We just needed them online so we could interact with the project managers, our finance teams. And so there you go. It is a spreadsheet. That was what we started with. That was what our purpose of getting this application for. But it was for workflow, task management, dashboards, reporting. But you're like, well, where's the GIS in this presentation? It also helped us do some mapping as well. So for the airport, for Hurricane Florence, we had a point of contact down at the EOC. His name is Randy. He's standing up there in the back.
The big guy there.
So historically, we were using a spreadsheet down at the EOC and contacting airports and seeing what the status of the airport was. Are they open? Was a runway open? What's the fuel status? Do you have power? This was basically all of us at the Division of Aviation would have been interacting with the airports that we're responsible for and getting this information. But we used Smartsheet to gather that. Who needed it? The state EOC. We had pilots. These pilots include National Guard pilots called emergency service pilots, executives. We say NCDOT executives, but it's really all the stakeholders that were involved at the state EOC, because many of our operations to save people was due to aircraft. How did we share it? Initially, we shared it through this controlled access to the sheet, the spreadsheet. We shared it internally. Randy was using the Smartsheet share applet part of the sheet, basically email address, send somebody an email address. You could log in the Smartsheet, and then you were able to see that data sheet. So this is a little workflow diagram made up. So we had airport sponsors. We basically gave them a form that tied directly to this spreadsheet. It was this was about right when the state EOC started up. That went into, each record went into basically a log of, okay, this airport has this status, so that we can just look at the sheet, look for the last entry, and then see how the airport was doing. About day 2 into the hurricane, I think it was Sunday, we found that we were actually taking the data, downloading it, putting it into a shapefile and sending it over to GIS, and this became very tedious. So we actually found a mapping app, a part of Smartsheet that could basically take the lat longs of our airports. There's a lot of limitations on that map, but we have 72 airports. They allow 100 points. Well, we were good to go then. So that dashboard was created, then we shared that dashboard, and that very dashboard you see got to the governor's desk for aviation. So, and that includes all the stakeholders, governor. We even had, English Embassy? English Embassy actually must have had some people in the area and was interested in what the airport status was. So here's our timeline. September 10th, state operations calls up. Randy heads on down there. We create the sheet. We create the form, send out to the airports. Hurricane's still pretty far off. We get a couple of airports that say, hey, we're good to go. We actually got some submittals that day. You'll notice as I go through this, as we get closer to the hurricane, we started changing our Smartsheet. We started seeing what our stakeholders kind of wanted to see. One of the problems is once we started getting into the hurricane and these statuses started coming in quicker and quicker, we had a larger data sheet, we had more shared users, and we were sometimes we had people interacting, trying to filter and sort. Well, we wanted the latest entry, so we were able to create a structural change, create a new sheet that basically grabbed the latest of the sheet so that we can actually make these maps. Actually, this map was created at that time. The previous map, I just created this for this presentation. So on September 14th, made landfall. We basically got the dashboard published on that day. This had all occurred within the days before. We were, we were just looking at using a spreadsheet online to share. We got into we talked to the Smartsheet people, got into the dashboard, made some dashboards, and got some mapping set up. So our first view was at that time. And then 10 days later, our final entry, it was a 348th record. And here's a large image of our dashboard and the map on that day. Some of the keys metrics to that, the key items I'd like to point out is we had 188 users tied to that data that we knew, and we can track when they viewed it. We can track how many times a day. We can easily download that structured into a spreadsheet. And we had a lot of stakeholders. We had all those people that dealt with aviation operations at the State Operations Center, and all the way up to the governor for status updates.
Sorry, it's me. So how many of y'all saw this picture and it circulated all around the social media and everything? And I think it was, Snoopy or something's website where they always prove everything is not what's supposed to. Sorry, yeah, that's it. So they said this is a river, that this photo is a river and not a road. But this was exactly the first picture that we took. Our team went out and took of the I-40, and we ourselves were amazed by the level of flooding that took place there. Main thing out of here is that we in the office running the command center couldn't really know what's going on unless our team went out and did these flights. And this was the picture that came back. And when we showed our communication folks, they were like, hey, you need to send this out to people so people know that it's not safe to travel. And then all the social media and news and all started getting this, started circulating all around the nation. And the funny thing was, like, next day, within 24 hours, I got retweeted this by folks in San Francisco saying that, and you should follow these guys. These guys have been doing a great job. And I was like, it's NCDOT. That's where I work. Like, oh, okay, So within 24 hours, it came back all the way from San Francisco. But the thing is, it just tells you that people are still not ready to accept the technology. It's still in that stage where, just like Todd mentioned, there were so many key stakeholders in the manned side. In the unmanned side, we found it more difficult to get this out to people because they were like, oh, what are you guys doing? And why are you doing it? And we do our own stuff. So, it's that last year what we had to do was go ahead and take lead. We went to FA, we went to FEMA, we went to our emergency management, said that we are going to lead the UAS for the infrastructure side. We are not doing search and rescue. We're going to be, because we don't have the training, but we will do everything infrastructure because that is DOT and that's what we do. And that's where we started doing all these operations. We had to get information out that we are here and we are here to help. So that is why last year it was difficult. We had to, and why Smartsheets really helped a lot, and moving forward will help. That's what we're talking about. But the request, so our first priority is to be able to support and manage whatever the requests come from our DOT business, basically our DOT, and that is the different divisions and all the engineers, how we can assess them. So we had to get these smart sheets out to them, and we had to ask them to submit it, and how do we track all these things was the main focus here. Is because for us, Todd was our main person who was helping us get this in place, but he was already doing the manned side, so he was busy with that, and we had to look at the unmanned side. So we had to go back and forth because we were learning how to use it. At the same time, there was stuff that we needed, to make edit so that we can be able to see, more clearly, or just focus on those areas. So, we had a whole workflow basically created, which will be the next slide. But basically, they had to submit it, and the information that requested was like for which agency or which division requested it, what is the location, and basically from there we had to assign it to the respective teams. So we had teams created. Now, who needed these? Basically when they submit a request, they also need to be aware about if the flight is done or the flight is still to be done, or maybe a next day flight because we couldn't cover it. So that is what we had to do, is who gets access to this data that we are collecting. So we had to figure all that out and get it back to our business units, get it back to communication. And how do we share this data, not just to DOT, but everyone else also. So we had to plan all those things. And we used GIS, ArcGIS Online. So we worked with our GIS department, and we said that what's the simplest way to move forward with the data that we collect? That data is pictures, videos, and get it in real time if possible, or as soon as possible. So as you take these pictures, each of these pictures have a latitude and longitude. So when you save these pictures in a folder, we got a GIS department to write up the code. Basically every 30 minutes they would pull these pictures up and put it up in a GIS map. And this GIS map was seen by all our DOT folks, but also by other agencies that needed assistance. And then all the folders that we used to save this data were SharePoint. So each other team had access to one of their folders, and they could drop all this data in. So basically that was the timeline. On 15th, Todd got all these things moving, and basically the whole step-by-step on how we had to work with him to say, okay, we need this, and he had to work back and say, okay, this is possible, this is not. So it was a whole process from 15th right up to 22nd that we went on and on. So that, for us, it's a whole new technology, a whole new area to use, but the problem is that we are focused so much on the UAS side that this was not a big reason for us to spend time on. We said, okay, thought will help us out. But in the process, both of us were learning, and we were all learning, and we're sure the next time we'll be much better prepared. So the workflow was similar to the airport operation, but here we send these smart sheets, forms to the divisions and other folks within DOT. So when they, and this really it was DOT, but also other agencies would also reach out and want to fill this form. So that was how the form looked. It's a simple form. You give all your information, what you need, as much information as possible so that we don't have to reach out to you to find it. So there was a bunch of information that's required, and when they fill this information, it would create reports and maps. So basically, myself and my team, so we had totally about 4 or 5 people who was dedicated to this. We were all be sitting there, and we had all these screens up on the walls and also on the laptops, and this map would show up, and basically every time a person would submit a form to refresh, these points would be created. We would know where these flights are, and we had teams that were already deployed to certain locations, and we said to wait till further instructions, and some were based in our office who we would send as per need. So these teams were already positioned there, and when these requests come, we would send it out to the respective teams, and it was so smooth. Initially, it was we were trying to understand this ourselves, but within a couple of hours, it was just simple. Choose the team, send it, see where the team is, and it gets emailed to them immediately. But also, we check back with them that they have received it or not because of network issues. This would all then you have basically these were the blue ones were the flights that was yet to be done. The black would be when you're done with the flight, so we know the flights are done. And we had a whole process that once 50 flights are done, that will go out and the rest new ones will come, because it had a limit as we are using. But then all the data that we collected, pictures, videos, all these things would be put on the GIS map. So that was a GIS map that was created. And every 30 minutes, if you refresh, you would see our teams putting out. So we were communicating with our teams, but at times we were not also. And all we knew was they had uploaded the data, because as they were driving, they found a network. We had dedicated Verizon network, so we asked the pilot to stop at certain locations, find the network, upload it before you go out to the next flight. Many of the missions were not even assigned; they found it. So as they were driving, they said, "Oh, that area is shut." So we would tell them, "Send your latitude, longitude, and we will create a point for you and a file name so you can save it under that." So there was a lot of requests that came in by the forms, and some were visual based on pilots' visual listing. So from there, we would send it out to our stakeholders, the whole the GIS map, so they could see the videos, say the pictures in real time, and then make the necessary decision. This was the first time we used a UTM dashboard. UTM stands for Unmanned Traffic Management System. This is where we could deconflict between manned and unmanned aircraft. So all our pilots that were flying under the AirMap app, and we shared the screen with FAA, FEMA, National Guard, so that when they were flying, they could see where our pilots were, and if they wanted our pilots to come down or stop the operation, it was instantly they could do it via SMS or let us know. So our pilots were coordinated. We don't want to interfere with manned aircrafts, and this way we could also monitor. We also had manned aircraft that was pulled through the swim data, the ADSP, and we could see where the manned aircrafts were there at the same time. So basically, this was the whole, the reports created, then points created. This is how the dashboard, we would have a metrics of how much flights we did per day, which agencies, which divisions were it, and this is how the GIS map was. We pulled in both, even the manned and unmanned data into it. And then this was the pictures. We would be able to send it to the respective divisions and let them know that it's been uploaded. And also, this is how the GIS map looks. So if you click on any of those dots, so I believe the pink was videos, the blue was pictures. So if you clicked it, you could scroll through the pictures. If you want to go into the detail folder, you could do it. But we would select one main picture that gives enough information and let them see that. Same thing with the video. Those lines you see, those are your manned aviation flights that was done. And these were the agencies we support, and like I said, not just DOT, We supported the Department of Public Safety, Environmental Quality, and National Guard and FEMA. So based on the metrics of that, we did 254 missions. We had 19 teams. We had created extra teams that we could use as per needed. So if a new pilot and new team was created, they would be put in one of those teams. So 190 dashboard views, 515 gigabytes of video and photographs, altogether 10 days, 14 hours, 22 minutes. So this was our team. Why it is successful? Because it's the first time state and local government worked together with the private industry. So we had DOT, Public Safety Agency, SHP, we had Public Safety Drone Academy, and then on-call consultants, Dronescape, Northstate Engineering, Precision Arc, and SME. So that was the metrics of the dashboard. This was the original metrics. We had 15 UAS teams that were deployed, and we had 260 flight missions. That each mission was about 2 or 3 flights. So we did a lot of flights, 8,000 plus images and videos. These were the platforms that were used during these operations, DJI and SenseFly. Post-hurricane success, we were able to communicate real time. We were able to let people know that the roads were unsafe. We were able to provide information to our engineers, and also that they could do post-storm repairs and necessary assessments. And we were able to coordinate this with the state and local government and private sector. That's our information. If you have any questions, both Todd and me are here. Questions? Anything about the dashboard or anything about the Smartsheet? Let's go on.
How did you share information with NCEM?
So emergency management was running, so they were at the EOC running their operation. They had their EOC server created and everything. Whatever flights they wanted us to do, that they couldn't do, they would assign it to us. But we were sending the same link to them, and they gave us access to their server where we could drop in the pictures and images. After this operations, most recently, emergency management asked us to be in the EOC moving forward. So we'll be giving, Randy company next time with having unmanned side also. So we lead the state and the unmanned side. We help agencies to integrate this technology. So this was a good time for us to all work together. But it's a big thing for DOT to be asked to be at the EOC at the unmanned systems, because it's a whole new technology. So we have built a trust with all the agencies at this point.
There was a separate section of the dashboard that was the Web EOC, the Web EOC submittals. If anybody wanted UAS mission, it'd go through Randy and then it'd come through the form. So we had, and you can track those separately.
So moving forward, we would, FEMA will do the search and rescue, emergency management would do the mapping, and we'll do the infrastructure. That's what was discussed. Yes, sir.
Smartsheet, is it free software or paid?
I'm not, as I said, not a salesman, but there's different licensing levels, and we purchased about the mid-license level. There is an enterprise level, but we're basically administering content. We have the ability to share it, control access. We've done quite a bit, and they're always expanding. Like we've noticed over the past year or 8 months that we've been using it, that there's been a lot of upgrades to the system. So, but you can always go to smartsheet.com and request a quote.
So one of the success of this whole operation was using Smartsheets and using GIS, because drones have been flying for a couple of years now. You can go and fly drones. You can collect the data. 1 week later, you can bring it to the office saying that, I couldn't reach because of the roads and all. But that does not really help for real time. So that's why live streaming was something which we could do real time. And the governor's office requested many flights. Our traffic unit requested a lot of flights. So this was really an opportunity to use not just drones, but GIS and Smartsheets into the system. And that is why when we talked about this whole workflow to the other agencies, they were like, this needs to be educated to the other states. So presently we are doing a whole education around not just in US, but international also, Last year we spoke at London. In April we'll be speaking in Amsterdam about this. So basically we are going to different countries to talk about how UAS can be integrated, because what we did may be successful, but someone else can take it to the next level. So we hope we get to learn from other people how this move forward. Yes, sir.
How long could a drone stay airborne?
So it depends on what sort of drones you're using, but a typical drone in the industry standard wise would be 20 to 25 minutes. But that is for taking pictures. But if you're looking at 4K videos, that's going to take 10 to 15 minutes sometimes. So one thing, and that's a good question you put up, because for this, we didn't need 4K videos. You know, you're not looking at making this a beautiful video in the end of this. You're trying to get enough information that you can do something about it. So we didn't need 4K video, so we were able to stay up for about 20-25 minutes without an issue. But then there are other drones that moving forward we have to work on, like we used a fixed wing, SenseFly. We did the first BVLS operation. Now that SenseFly drone can stay up to 60 minutes and plus. So, you know, that's a fixed wing drone. So we are looking into other platforms that will help us out. And many of our team folks had these different platforms so we could use. Yes?
How was it decided what roads you would fly?
This is where I said there was two types of operation. One was the forms that came in, and one was we just assigned our team to go to one direction till as they drive, they come and let us know that this road is shut, that road is shut. So basically there was two types of teams. One team was positioned in Wilmington, one was positioned there. So they would just drive around. If there are no requests, they would just drive around, go to small roads and find out, if anything is there an issue, let us know. Because this, in the future, we know the hotspots now. So in future, we know where to deploy them. But the problem is that all the information we got was from the traffic unit website, that where the roads were shut. So we would go there to make sure that this roads was flooded or not, because traffic unit would get an update saying that this road is flooded, it's shut. But when we reached there, our team said the road is fine, there's no flooding here. So there was wrong information being passed out by people. So this was a good way for us to make sure that what the traffic unit had, information would be the same what we had. So with this map that we created, next time, we know the areas that we need to deploy people. This was not as big, the eye of the storm was not in North Carolina, so next time also if it is around the coast, we know what it is. Next time, and if it's in the eye of the storm, it is on North Carolina, it may be a whole different picture. But the problem is that many of the flooding was over the days. It took 3 to 4 days for the flooding to take place. So by the time Kinston got flooded, it was nearly a week later. So we just had to drive around and make sure that people, the information that we had was correct or not. So this was more of a future planning tool, but a lot of real-time information we got out of it.
Is there any kind of plan? You said there was a forum or something online for local municipalities or companies to...
So right now, at that point, it was morely scattered out. It was sent out to people who knew about us and we knew, but maybe in the future, we open it up to all agencies to use it, any state, local government to put it in. But that's a problem, it's unless we all work coordinated. Right here, we had 15 teams, but there were other law enforcement, fire department doing their own operation, which we are hoping that someday in the future, we are able to bring all of them under one. That way we know where they are, where they are flying. And this way we could send the sheets to everyone within the state. So we're working in that way that with this 15 teams, hopefully next time we'll have 30 teams, and then eventually we'll be having the whole UAS side under the EOC and making sure everyone who flies, we know about it.
And if you had requested it through your local EOC or county EOC, it would have gotten up to the state and probably would have gotten submitted. But
I didn't even know that our EOC was aware of it.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
This was the first time we were able to use this, so this is where we had to. So this is why I say that the technology unmanned systems is pretty new. For people, there is a whole group of people who are still trying to figure out, is this technology really good or not? And then there's the other group that are doing their own operation. So this is why we do these workshops and everything to educate people that let us work with you, let us talk to you, so that when you're doing your operations, we will be able to, assign you flights also. Like someone in your area who's doing the flights, we could assign that flight to them, because that would be immediately reacted rather than sending someone from our office all the way to your location. So this is where it is a process internally for us to educate our people, and we're hoping through these workshops and through these events, next time when anything happens, you reach out directly or say, do you have the form? Can we get it for our county or something? And then we could just send it to you.
So how do you deal with the regulation? I guess because it was like an extreme event, you were able to just
The regulations part, you said?
Yeah.
So we were working directly under FAA, and FAA was, so they had put a restriction that no flights under 200 feet. They had put it's a blanket restriction, and they, because we were using the UTM dashboard, they were letting us know that if anyone is flying over 200 feet, they asked us to let them know to come down. So we were helping, technically we were working with FAA to manage the airspace. So we were following all the rules and regulations, but at the same time we made sure everyone around us was also following the rules and regulations. So we, not just this, but over the years we are working with FAA directly to modify the rules and regulations or to create new rules and regulations that will help people. So we followed all the rules and regulations as federal and state level. All our pilots had license, they had their state permit, and they had insurance, and they were all vetted before. So we didn't use any, someone comes up and says, oh, we want to fly. No, we had to go through a process, because last thing you want is during a disaster, another disaster happening. So this is why we followed all the rules and regulation, and FAA was happy about it. I think we're out of time, right?
Yeah, we're into the break now.
We're at the break, so.
You need to hit the restroom.
Yeah.
Make it happen.